Iloraini. Kumodana.
Kumultada, Honorable Mayor Lady Jack. At this time, may I please ask Mr. Lance Posey, Charge the Affairs of the U.S. Embassy, to deliver remarks on behalf of the U.S. government. Jojum ledo pujin kapugubuk.
Yakwe Jinjapon Alap. Her Excellency President Hilda Heine and First Gentleman Tommy Kirchner Jr., representatives of the 4 atolls and survivors of the nuclear tests and their families, traditional leaders, Honorable Speaker Brinson Wase, Mayor Lottie Jack, ministers, senators, Nitijela Chaplain, Reverend Lawson Matato, and religious leaders, Secretary General Henry Puna, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished visitors from abroad, students and teachers, and the people of the Marshall Islands. On behalf of the people of the United States of America, thank you for granting us the privilege of speaking to you on this solemn day of remembrance, and for the opportunity to honor those harmed by nuclear testing programs, especially on this day, the 70th anniversary of the Castle Bravo test. The United States is also mindful of the current atmosphere of unease surrounding the status of the Compact of Free Association Agreement that marks a unique bond between our two nations. We hear your concern. Our bond is strong, and while our internal democratic processes have delayed passage of this legislation, this does not reflect the deep and continuing commitment our people have to the Marshall Islands. When a group of people tells its story, it focuses on its heroes, its achievements in art, science, and culture, and its contributions to the broader human legacy. Acknowledging that making those chapters of our history where we have fallen short of our ideals, made misguided decisions, or harmed the innocent is a bitter responsibility. But it is one the people of the United States are obliged to keep foremost in mind as we seek to define ourselves and our role in an ever-changing world. The legacy that our Cold War era nuclear testing has had on the people and lands of the Marshall Islands must never be forgotten or minimized. In honoring our past, we must confront our mistakes with humility and resolve to ensure that our actions serve as a testament to our commitment to justice, compassion, and preservation of human dignity for all. We acknowledge that differences over the handling of this legacy exist between our nations. But even when families disagree, they are still bound by unbreakable bonds of affection, partnership, and cooperation. As we move forward into an ever more uncertain world, the United States looks forward to continued partnership and cooperation that are key to building a brighter future. We ask for your forbearance as we work through the challenges of the day. And we ask for your faith and belief that we will always try to bring our best to this relationship. And we look forward to continuing our journey together as resolute allies as part of this Pacific family of free nations. Jaraman Ilorainin Im Komotata.
Komoltada Charji. Ngay morongkia kachudagupin Honorable Jess Casper Jr., Senator Royan Kale Bikini Ajay, Imbaranwod Minister on Culture and Internal Affairs, Bayan Marong Podog Nano, Iloatan 4 atolls. Jojum leto pujin kapubuk.
Kumol, Miss Marshall Islands. Cholaga Burwe Jaren with technical difficulties with technology. Yahweh im good morning all. Mukalada lelak nabarum kamolul cemer wujilang kan rainin kan yenin auruk ngan island kinar nuclear victims Remembrance Day 2024. Kile mani deo chairman and vice chairman irojin mle rojaro honoreo ilo memon iroj kile alabrinar kile ragi rain cemer kile Her Excellency President Hilda C. Heine, Cabinet Dewan, Minister Rain Madda, Speaker Wase, Vice Speaker Zacharias, Member Ro, Ilon Nadijale, Kile Mayor Ro Kajuju, Him Council Members Ro. Special Kile and Mayor Larry Jack, Kamolo Le, Gananin welcome go. Kile Ro Maddar, Chin Diplomatic Corps, NGOs, donor partners, in Rain Ilo private sector. Special recognition and acknowledgement to Mr. Lance Posey, Charge the Affairs in U.S. Embassy, Mr. Henry Puna, Secretary of the Pacific Islands Forum. Kale kajuj kajuju jenrik nganlup. Rain red berijin, im rain ran is tuning ilo live stream. My name is Jess Gasper Jr., Senator of Bikini Atoll. I have the honor and privilege to deliver the remarks on behalf of the 4 atolls. Ladies and gentlemen, honored dignitaries, distinguished guests, 70 years ago today, the U.S. detonated the largest ever U.S. nuclear bomb, codenamed Castle Bravo. The nuclear weapon detonated over Bikini Atoll was 1,000 times more destructive than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. Castle Bravo irradiated the entire northern Marshall Islands, and the Marshallese people who were still living on those islands at the time. Mankind, all of an Aramijin Lalin, owes a huge debt to the people of these islands, as there has been no world war since the nuclear testing occurred here in these islands, as the world witnessed what weapons of this magnitude can do. Aramijin Lalin, Romuri Pin Aramijin Majal, but Chenwat Kamelmelago, Chichangan Ballo Pada Ralab, Chenwata Air Ekalagal, Kanchongan and Kajur Bamrudin. But today, I'm going to speak about what took place 8 years before. Before any testings, before Castle Bravo, before anyone outside of the Marshall Islands has ever heard of the word bikini. This is our story. We have not forgotten Chichangan Melalop. We have not forgotten on a quiet Friday afternoon on March 7, 1946, 70 years ago today, is a time etched in the minds of our people when our world was turned upside down. 167 people from Bikini were forcefully removed to relocate for the good of mankind. We have not forgotten the promise that if our island home did not turn into glass, we would be able to return. Till this day, the people of Bikini have not been able to go back home. Out of the 167, only 7 are still alive. We have not forgotten. Earlier in that day, our ancestors gathered together at our cemetery to say their goodbyes and pray before boarding the ship. Unbeknown to them, this would be the last time they ever set foot on Bikini Atoll. We have not forgotten how quiet that landing ship tank LSD number 1108 as they awaited to embark on their 125-mile journey to Rongorik. Not a single word was said. They awaited in silence. They awaited in confusion, filled with uncertainty. We have not forgotten. As they sailed away, tears started to flow freely as they caught the final glimpse of Bikini disappearing in the horizon. We have not forgotten The children asking their parents and grandparents, where are we going? To try to calm their children, they told them, we'll be back home shortly. Tijangan melalap. John elegant ralep, plaide, ma chimijon, John Dojin Ramion Pui, Yongul Chijino, Chimijon Olia, Koramodalak, Estereo, Mure, and Armijin Bikini, Arogadak, Kenaman, Ganana. Hakchinker Aman, Najarada, Estereo, Armijro Chibu, Jin Jimion, Radu Jalak, Chet Island, Yoai. Imungan Rainin, Rachang, Chebala. Chibugi Jino old yair, Emo Yer Chagu. Yum Rainin Matano Timion. Tichang and Malala. Airkar Koba, Ipendron, Yon Willageo, Ilo Bikini. Him come on a charro, Alec Dada. Poda Jedi, Wella, Yon LSD. Join Chiro Radidak. Him Emmagit and Island, him Chibarakala Island in Rongrip. Chibugi Rongola mile, Turok in Bikini. Iloair charge da iman. Tichang and Malala. I then Chapalag Magat and Yaran Bikini, Iloai Lukun quiet. He met Chalak Chirik Kanono. Tichang and Malala. And Thor then in Kemjala. Chen Majan Rutoro. I did Euro. Ilo Toreo, why it Bolag do it. Lagajan Doyo. Tichang and Malala. And I did Euro with Kajidaki Pensionerum Jamir. Chibuyerum Chimayer, Mama, Baba, Jejadalangania, Uaga wire, and catching and kind of money, Jejadal, in Barraldo, work here. In a culture where land and the home are inseparable from one's identity, the people of Bikini made the ultimate sacrifice for the good of mankind. Relinquishing their connection to the land that held their history and traditions. I end my speech today with the lyrics of our national anthem. Rongjake Melelegi and Magistrate Chino Dada and Arbijit Bikini, Jimma, Lori, Kijabugi, Ejba. Ichaber Emol. I Ichaber Ainaman. No longer can I stay. Yes, it is true. No longer can I live in peace and harmony. Can island in Melan go ye because of my home island and the life I once knew. My spirit leaves me, drifting around and far away where it becomes caught in a current of immense power. This is the spirit of every Bikini, especially during these times, no matter where they may be. No matter where they may be. Mejaro Kale Ejij, just drifting around, filled with sorrow and pain. No longer can we live in peace and harmony. I the mol, Ichaber, Aina man. And today, we pause for a moment of reflection and respect to our fellow Marshallese who suffered and lost so much as a result of the U.S. nuclear testing program. We have not forgotten their sacrifice. We have not forgotten their hardship. Jechangan melalak, aid mol, Japan melalak, komo mol dada. God bless our republic.
Komodada Honorable Minister. Iloyanin ngay morongkia kachadagipin Olip pajan karwanan ito kami duyuan kale Bikini aja nganay raljonal kanelang kapugawok.
Kumain tujuh ah, hilang berapa? Tujuh man. Jangan ubah tujuh ah, kumain tujuhnya human ten yang ngain cukup. Ye jabermol ay di jaberay ne man yon gede bida ke ay ling yo ay melan ko iye
Komotada KB community. Camarang ya balelak pujin kapo bogelat. At this time, I am pleased and honored to welcome Honorable Henry Puna, Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum, to deliver today's special remarks. Jojum ledok pujin kapo.
Your Excellency, Madam President Hilda Heine, members of your cabinet, members of parliament and government, traditional leaders, spiritual leaders, and leaders of various communities, sectors of our community, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of United Nations agencies, our lovely school children who led the march this morning with your teachers, to the people of the Republic of Marshall Islands, Kia ora, Yakwe, and a very good morning to you all. I bring warm Pacific greetings from your forum brothers and sisters throughout the Blue Pacific. May I firstly extend my sincerest appreciation to the President and the Government of the Republic of the Marshall Islands for the warm invitation to join you here today. I am deeply honored to be a part of this occasion to mark an issue that remains deeply important to our Blue Pacific continent. Over the last few years, I have been privileged to support this annual commemoration day led by your embassy and the Marshallese community in Fiji. In fact, I can tell you that right now, they are commemorating this day at the USB campus in Suva. While remembering tragedies of the past, I am always filled with hope and optimism, witnessing your children, the Marshallese youth based in Fiji, bravely leading and honoring their history with immense pride. But to be here with you today, to walk with you in Majuro on this 36th commemoration, strikes a tender chord within me. I stand with you on this day to honor and respect the lives of your people, of our people, who bore and continue to bear the permanent and intergenerational illnesses and problems caused by nuclear weapons testing in our region. I stand in solidarity with you all to ensure that we never forget those 50 long years of atrocities perpetrated on our Blue Pacific. Indeed, nuclear testing was a key driver for the formation of the Pacific Islands Forum 53 years ago. And I'm pleased to say that we have made great strides during that time with the landmark Treaty of Rarotonga in 1985 and the permanent cessation of nuclear testing in our region in 1996. The nuclear testing legacy remains a priority for our forum leaders, and the region continues to turn to you, the Marshall Islands, for your stewardship and leadership on this critical issue. Just 3 months ago, at their 52nd annual meeting here held in the Cook Islands, Forum leaders affirmed their commitment to continue support towards bilateral, regional, and multilateral action to resolve these outstanding legacy issues. And as articulated in our 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific Implementation Plan, our leaders have prioritized effective inclusive leadership at the international level on all nuclear issues. Together, I believe we will heighten advocacy to urge the global community to address nuclear legacy issues in the Pacific through the Rarotonga Treaty and other regional mechanisms. In September 2023, at the second U.S. Pacific Islands Forum Summit held in Washington with President Biden, Pacific leaders acknowledged and welcomed the United States' express commitment to address ongoing environmental, public health, and other welfare concerns in the Marshall Islands. And we must hold our great friends, the U.S., accountable to these promises. In fact, I'm pleased to say that our relations with the U.S. have never been stronger. Over the last few years, we have embarked on a journey to strengthen our partnership at the highest levels. And as we build upon and nurture this relationship, it is absolutely important that it be underpinned by honesty, open sharing, and mutual respect. Indeed, in the words of former President Ronald Reagan when signing the Compact Agreement, we are family. And you know, in the Pacific way, families share openly and with respect for one another. And we expect no less from our U.S. friends. If I may be so frank this morning, I am sad to see that our history is littered with instances of foreign disrespect for our Blue Pacific. Clearly, in a way, we can say that we've been used as a testing ground, more like a testing laboratory, if you wish. And we must ask the question, as I have always asked myself many times, why was the most beautiful corner of the world with the most beautiful and peaceful people chosen for these horrific acts without our informed consent? Why? Indeed, why? While we have come a long way in mending past grievances, regrettably, the terms of resolving nuclear legacy issues in the Marshall Islands have been inadequate. And there is a lot to be done. We must overcome any imbalances of respect in our partnership so that we can determine the true value of what was truly lost all those years ago when these waters and lands were contaminated. But, my people, I am hopeful that this issue will not go away until we are satisfied that our voices have been heard. And this is why occasions such as this Nuclear Victims Remembrance Day are so critical in our endeavors. After all, words and promises without action on the ground remain exactly that. Although difficult, remembering this history is important to empower generations to come toward the justice that we continue to seek for the Marshall Islands, for French Polynesia, for Kiribati, and in fact, for the whole Blue Pacific continent. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing my remarks, I want to take this opportunity to once again thank you for your relentless efforts to ensure that we never forget, to ensure that we will always remember, but more importantly, to ensure that justice is done. I renew my full commitment and that of your forum family to supporting all efforts to ensure that nuclear testing never happens again in our blessed Pacific, and that the light of hope shines brightly upon a safer and more security for us all. May God bless the Marshall Islands, and may God bless our Blue Pacific. Komal Tata, thank you very much.
Kumultada Secretary General. Ejumuin cecep penano elap yimelitadan programin enidok jenki enewariolap. Ejon menin kamolol by Her Excellency President Dr. Hilda C. Haine emarong karerong kureo nganan pokdok enano elap manienin. Yimejon auday nganan marong kule Her Excellency President Dr. Hilda C. Haine nganan pokdok nano elapan rainin iloyadan armit yimki enewan Marshall Islands. Jojom ledo pujin kapubuk.
Yago kumujawlep lucu ponin. Claim number ani modada. Prenot claim manideo. Chairman Lani kabiwai rojim le rojro. Imono rojlo mumer. Rojro ana ilingin ilo rojlo manijin. Claim kumuj. Prenot rojro chet belangin ilingin. Claim rowan kabinadeo. Ro karejare prenot. Speaker Wise, Vice Speaker Zagreya, Imrowan, Jalayo, Imroka Rajaray Prenot, Judiciary, Chief Justice Imromatan, Tublamado Coreo, Iklegia, Mr. Henry Puna, Secretary General, Evogen Pacific Island Forum, Prenot Lance Posey, representing Kianoan, America Chipon in Rainin, Claire Rojan Private Secretary, in General Kachuju. Prenot kile mail lady check imaleben mero kachuyo kile army rojan for atoll ilo chupongin rainin kile rijugu rainway trigdagin island kain kile awale army jin majal nani na ena inay konono ilo kajino chon lo chupongin rainin padabam jan tri lagan kamani chon kajin majal wanay walu ilo radio Chinojan chungu ruawa rainin. Kajarbal kajino chun lo chupunganin rainin and the audience jawar chipungi na bayan lang ro matarjan ligin. On behalf of the Republic of the Marshall Islands and its people, I extend our warmest welcome to our visitors from afar, from the Pacific Islands, Japan, Australia, Europe, the United States, and beyond, on this important yet difficult anniversary. We mark this day each year, not because the nuclear legacy defines us. Rather, we come together to draw collective strength to navigate the ongoing challenges radiating from the U.S. government activities in our islands during the Cold War. It has been a long road to where we are today, since the first nuclear bomb was detonated in the Marshall Islands in 1946. Most of the people who have been forced to leave their home islands have passed on. Their remains are buried in some foreign soil within and outside the Marshall Islands, and sadly, their spirits are gone, roaming the Pacific in exile. Nuclear Victims' Remembrance Day serves as a solemn reminder of the overwhelming repercussions and human rights violations inflicted upon the Marshall Islands and its people by the U.S. government's nuclear weapons testing program that took place nearly 8 decades ago. Today is a particularly noteworthy anniversary because it marks 70 years since March 1st, 1954, when the U.S. detonated its most destructive weapon, the Castle Bravo, which has cast a long shadow of challenges that persist to this day. 70 years since islands were completely vaporized, people's culture deprived, and communities had been forcibly displaced, unable to move back to their contaminated homes for many generations to come. 70 years since the launch of human experimentations in which we were the test subjects to study the effects of radiation exposure on human beings, categorized among a long list of other subjects, including plants and animals. 70 years since being exposed to dangerously high levels of radiation that eventually led to the many cases of miscarriages, stillbirths, and what we call jellyfish babies. 70 years since we started losing loved ones too soon to what were defined as radiation-induced illnesses by the Nuclear Claims Tribunal. 70 years since classified activities had taken place in our home, downwind mid-range communities ignored in their home islands, transportation of 700 tons of Nevada highly radioactive soil dumped in our lagoon and sea. What other secret experiments and activities took place that we have yet to be made aware of? 70 years since our first petition to the United Nations Trusteeship Council in April of 1954, a few weeks after the Bravo test, and again in March of 1956, to put a stop to the nuclear testing, which continued despite our petitions until 1958. While the petitioners were unsuccessful in both instances, they nevertheless demonstrated to the world their love of the Marshall Islands and the wrong that was being visited upon them, and their willingness to correct it. The March 1956 petition to the United Nations read as follows, and I quote, "Land means a great deal to the Marshallese. It means more than just a place where you can plant your food crops and build your houses, or a place where you can bury your dead. It is the very life of the people. Take away their land, and their spirits go also," unquote. Successive generations of Marshallese men and women have taken up the cause in pursuit of justice with the hope that the day will come when we can bring closer to this issue. Their actions exemplify the spirit of our ancestors who bravely sailed the vastness of the Pacific Ocean in their quest to discover these islands for themselves and future generations of Marshallese. We owe them all a debt of gratitude. Indeed, the RMI has a long history of advocacy for nuclear justice. RMI has argued in the International Court of Justice and made clear to the United Nations and US Congress nuclear weapons are instruments of genocide, and the RMI wants no part in having its people or lands involved in perpetuating the use or the threat of use of these weapons. In solidarity with other native, indigenous, and communities whose lands and people have been impacted by uranium mining, processing of plutonium, building or testing of weaponry, downwind exposures from releases, cleanup of contaminated areas, and storage and disposal of nuclear waste, we join collective solidarity to forcibly state no more. We supported the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, TPNW, short of ratifying it because it does not go far enough to address the impacts of nuclear weapons. Among other issues, the language in the treaty on assistance and responsibility for cleanup may still be open to interpretation, where certain interpretations would be detrimental to the RMI's interests. Our people endured the equivalent of nuclear war for 12 years from 1946 to 1958. Our first-hand experiences with the insidious and ongoing intergenerational violence emerging from nuclear weapons serve as fuel for our international political leadership. We want no other people to experience the grief and anguish imported into our communities by the objectives of others. Amameurakaj, our motto for this year's commemoration, is steeped with meaning and filled with the wisdom of our ancestors that continue to guide us today. It is difficult to capture the full meaning of this phrase, but Amameurakaj means that as we endure hardship and are left in a state of quandary about how to proceed, we look deep within ourselves to find the collective resolve and solutions that move us forward towards a different future. In 2004, concurrent resolution number 364 was adopted by the United States House of Representatives, recognizing, and I quote, more than 5 decades of strategic partnership between the U.S. and the peoples of the Marshall Islands, unquote, and calls the 12 years of nuclear testing, quote, the defining experience of the nuclear era for the people of the Marshall Islands, unquote. It was also in 2004 that the U.S. National Cancer Institute issued one of the most significant reports about the nuclear test legacy in the Marshall Islands. The report predicted that the Marshallese will experience hundreds of future cancer cases linked to the U.S. nuclear testing program. The report also confirms that many of these cancers would occur in people from islands the U.S. government claimed are, quote, unquote, unexposed. Indeed, this defining experience alluded to by the U.S. Congress has left a devastating footprint on the health, well-being, and rights of the Marshallese people. Today, the Marshall Islands is at the crossroads. As you all are aware, the U.S. and RMI signed a new agreement to continue our free association relationship. The U.S. Congress has failed to pass legislation that would allow the funding that is a critical part of the agreement we signed with the U.S. government, including funds allocated to address nuclear-related issues. So, when we are told that there is, quote unquote, wide bipartisan praise for the agreement, yet the United States Congress fails to pass the legislation necessary to turn on the funding tabs linked to our agreement. It begs the question whether we are now at the crossroads with our relationship with the United States. At some point, our nation needs to seriously consider other options available to us if the U.S. is unable or unwilling to keep its commitments to us. Our nation has been a steadfast ally of the United States, but that should not be taken for granted. I have to insert a footnote here. I was told this morning that the U.S. Congress had found a way to include the COFA agreements in a legislation that will be going forward that supposedly will be passed during the second week in March. I don't want to or count our chickens before they hatch, but that is the news that I want to share, and I hope and look forward to that being a reality. Today's motto has asked us as Marshallese people to tap into our innovation and creativity and to design responses that center and align with our own values. This work cannot be done by outsiders. We need a cadre of Marshallese leaders who will draw on their cultural and community-shaped strengths to harness the brilliance and deep respect for one another and our natural world that is at the core of who we are. The support we need from the United States and outsiders interested in nuclear justice is to help build our national and regional capacity and structures that allow Marshallese leaders to develop and represent the needs of our communities. We need ongoing investments in our young and future Marshallese scientists, health practitioners, artists, engineers, politicians, navigators, economists, and more, so we can draw from as much creative and intellectual talent as possible to lead us on our path forward. In this respect, I'm encouraged by the youth-led and youth participation levels at this week's nuclear commemorative events around Majuro and beyond. I thank and celebrate the many champions of nuclear justice in all the places where you strive for more equitable and stable futures for all. This includes our communities who endure so much of the hardship, our displaced communities, communities that were subject to Project 4.1, the Marshallese cleanup workers, our cancer patients and their families on distant shores, because we have no cancer care facility in the Marshall Islands. To the many loved ones who have left our home to seek medical care, who are today in Hawaii, Washington, Arkansas, Oregon, California, Texas, Oklahoma, Iowa, and Philippines and beyond. We carry you in our hearts and channel our collective strengths to you as we deepen our resolve to create better structures for the health care our communities need, including the massive health care and environmental burdens we inherited from the nuclear legacy. We must move forward. In our quest to better understand how and in what shape or form moving forward would look like, we must draw on each other's strengths, knowledge, and experiences. For me, moving forward meant I had to start at the very beginning in the 4 atolls where people have experienced first-hand radiation exposure and the many ravages of the nuclear weapons testing programs. Since taking office in the middle of January of this year, I have visited 3 of the 4 nuclear-affected communities: Kele, Medjato, and Eniwetak to gain first-hand knowledge and to better understand the conditions under which these communities now live. I will also visit Woodruff in the near future after I have made arrangement with the leadership. These visits have taught me that while these nuclear-affected communities continue to survive thanks to the resilience of the people, further assistance is needed to enable them to thrive. Much needs to be done to create opportunities for these communities to thrive and to be productive. These visits have given me a new resolve to continue to seek justice for these communities and for all of Marshall Islands. Moving forward means we must continue to seek what is owed our people, past, present, and future, in personal injuries and environmental damages. Today, we honor our ancestors. We honor the depth of reserve and creativity that exists in ourselves to find solutions. And we honor